Across Morocco, anger is erupting like wildfire. Entire towns are rising up against Chinese mining projects accused of draining rivers, poisoning soil, and robbing communities of their future. What was once sold as progress has now turned into fury. Welcome to China Undercover. Today we bring you the latest news from Morocco. The deserts of Morocco are no longer silent. From Errachidia to Midelt, the air trembles with chants of resistance. Locals march through clouds of dust and smoke, shouting for justice and sovereignty. In the heart of North Africa, a nation once promised prosperity now burns with rage over foreign control and broken promises. Beijing's Grand Belt and Road Initiative once painted Morocco as a success story, a model for Africa's development. But behind the glossy headlines lies a harsher truth: deep debts, ecological destruction, and the slow erosion of independence. Chinese corporations now dominate Morocco's mineral belt, extracting cobalt, copper, and rare earths, the lifeblood of electric cars and tech industries. Yet, villagers say the riches never reach them. Farmland lies barren, wells have gone dry, and dust from the open pit mines blankets entire communities. "They took our land without asking," says one farmer. "Now our fields are dead, and so are our hopes." Reports from 2024 reveal that locals who dared to speak out were silenced or detained, pressured by both Moroccan authorities and Chinese contractors. What began as whispers of injustice soon ignited a movement. At the center stands the Bouazer cobalt mine, now run by a powerful Chinese consortium. Within a year, satellite images showed the desert scarred by new excavation zones stretching into protected lands. Livestock have died, wells have collapsed, and toxic runoff has poisoned water once used for generations. Then came the breaking point: leaked documents exposing that parts of Morocco's mining revenues had been used as collateral for Chinese loans. To many, it felt like selling the nation's future for borrowed cash. By mid-2025, the unrest had spread nationwide. From the mining towns of the southeast to the streets of Casablanca, tens of thousands marched beneath a shared cry: Morocco for Moroccans, not for China. Students, farmers, and workers united in defiance. Protests turned into clashes. Tear gas filled the air as riot police faced off against furious crowds. Social media flooded with viral footage, villagers blocking mine trucks, banners reading "No more poison wells," and nighttime excavations filmed under the glow of police flashlights. "They dig while we sleep," shouted one protester in a live broadcast that shook the country. Even Morocco's ports joined in rebellion. Workers in Tangier and Nador refused to load Chinese cargo, accusing foreign firms of turning their homeland into a warehouse of debt and dust. Analysts say these protests reveal a deeper wound: the divide between Morocco's rich coastal cities and its neglected interior. For years, local officials approved foreign contracts with little oversight, taking short-term profits while ignoring long-term damage. Environmental laws were bypassed. Corruption thrived. In response, the government has promised temporary reviews of certain mining projects, but avoided naming them. Official media urge calm, while Beijing calls the unrest a misunderstanding fueled by false information. But on Morocco's streets, few believe those words anymore. Because for many, this is no longer just about mines. It's about dignity, sovereignty, and survival. Morocco on fire: the price of China's promises. The deserts of Morocco are cracking under the weight of broken promises. As rivers turn to dust and farmland fades into memory, influencers and journalists are sharing satellite images that look less like maps and more like scars on the planet. One viral post summed up the nation's despair: "They took our mountains, now they take our water. What will remain for our children?" On October 15th, Marrakesh erupted. Police fired water cannons into crowds filling the city's central square. Protesters were dragged away under cover of night, and reporters found themselves blocked from entering the mining regions. On state television, the word China disappeared, replaced with vague talk of foreign investors. Behind closed doors, another storm was brewing. A leaked memo from Morocco's foreign ministry revealed growing tension with Beijing. Chinese investors demanded protection for their workers and hinted they might pull out of multi-billion-dollar projects, including the planned high-speed rail between Casablanca and Agadir, if the protests were not contained. But the people refused to back down. In Rabat, crowds now gather nightly outside parliament, lighting candles for those injured or arrested. Their message burns as bright as their candles. We don't need money that poisons our land. What began as an environmental cry has evolved into a national awakening, a rejection of corruption, dependency, and foreign control. Morocco's unrest is no accident. It's the product of years of neglect, hidden debt, and silent exploitation. Three forces drive Morocco's rage: dependence, destruction, and deception. For a decade, Morocco embraced Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative as a shortcut to progress. Roads, bridges, ports, and mines appeared overnight, financed by loans that glittered on paper but shackled the nation in debt. By 2020, over 40% of Morocco's new infrastructure was tied to Chinese funding, but the fine print favored Chinese companies, workers, and suppliers. Economists now call it debt diplomacy with a smile. When mining concessions were pledged as collateral, villagers realized that their land had quietly become repayment for foreign loans. The anger was no longer about pollution, it was about sovereignty. The environmental toll has been devastating. In the arid provinces of Errachidia and Midelt, Chinese-run mines pump thousands of gallons of groundwater daily. Rivers that once sustained generations have vanished. Satellite data shows water levels plunging by more than half within 2 years. Farmers now dig where wells once overflowed, finding only mud. Crops are dying, livestock are sick, and children cough from the dust that settles over their villages. Health clinics report more cases of respiratory illness and skin infection linked to contaminated soil. And when audits are released, they come from the same companies accused of causing the damage. The struggle for clean water has become a struggle for dignity. What was once seen as development is now viewed as destruction. Behind every mining deal lies a trail of backroom bargains. Whistleblowers describe how contracts were approved in secret, bypassing parliament and oversight. Bribes, hidden as consulting fees, flowed freely. One leaked file exposed a regional governor who pocketed $3 million to fast-track a foreign company's expansion. Beijing's approach is simple: find the cracks in governance, then widen them. For Morocco's elite, it meant fast money and prestige. For the people, it meant exclusion, silence, and loss. The government's crackdowns and censorship have only deepened public anger. Each arrest feels like proof that their leaders no longer serve the nation, but the investors who bankroll it. Morocco's crisis is no longer about one mine or one foreign company. It's about ownership. Who controls the nation's destiny? Dependence has drained its economy, pollution has scarred its land, and corruption has shattered trust. Together, these forces have created a perfect storm that no police force can contain. The protests are not just about rejecting Beijing's influence, they are about reclaiming Morocco's voice. The real question is no longer whether the government can end the demonstrations, but whether it can rebuild faith in a generation. Morocco's breaking point, when the promise of prosperity turns to dust. The story unfolding across Morocco is not just about politics, it's about people. Farmers losing their land, children falling sick, families watching their town vanish into the desert wind. What began as a dream of development has become a human tragedy that's reshaping an entire nation. In once thriving mining towns, dust now hangs in the air like a permanent storm. The hills around Bouazzer, once green with life, are now stained gray. Teachers, farmers, and laborers describe a world where the sunlight itself feels toxic. Every morning we wipe black dust off our windows, says Ali, a local teacher. It used to be sunshine, now it's poison. Water, once Morocco's most precious resource, is running out. Wells have dried up, crops are withering, and herds of livestock are dying from contaminated streams. The great farmlands that fed generations now stand barren, silent witnesses to what progress can cost. As rural livelihoods collapse, thousands are leaving their homes. Villagers displaced by mining projects are pouring into cities like Casablanca and Rabat, living in makeshift tents in unfinished buildings. Unemployment in mining regions has surged beyond 20%, pushing young people into poverty and despair. Families struggle not only against economic ruin, but against a growing sense of hopelessness. The crisis has spread beyond the human toll. European companies have paused imports of Moroccan minerals amid ethical concerns, cutting off a vital source of income. Foreign reserves are shrinking. The national currency is losing strength. State media describe the unrest as temporary instability, while Chinese outlets call it an exaggerated disturbance. But to those living through it, the suffering is anything but temporary. The promise of foreign investment was once dazzling, a vision of jobs, growth, and modernization. But the reality has left communities with poisoned water, dying fields, and contracts written in languages few could read. The gap between what was promised and what was delivered has become a wound that refuses to heal. Now, villagers are organizing online, documenting polluted rivers, tracking missing protesters, and sharing aerial footage of scarred landscapes. These quiet acts of resistance mark something new, a collective awakening. "We may not win today," says an elderly protester in Midelt. "But our children will remember who fought for this land." That voice now echoes across Morocco's deserts, a reminder that real progress cannot come at the expense of a nation's people or its dignity.